There you go.
That's why I went into show business with someone who give autographs. Where am I sitting?
Right here on this really comfortable couch.
By the hump.
I'm gonna have to go up to the front, and here's the menu.
Is it?
Yeah.
Right, are you going to send Jimmy?
And when Jimmy will be back by the time you get done with this, and you can send him out after you look at it.
He will. Right, great.
Okay, and if he doesn't,
If he doesn't, he'll be destroyed with a blasted laser fire, won't he? Okay. Of our records and T-shirts and merchandising, we've got rid of the birdcage on his head and just left a crescent. Now, when your soul enters Thoth, no, not Thoth, Thoth, but the Egyptians call it Tot. When your soul passes for judgment to beyond, your heart, and you've died, is weighed against the feather of truth by Anubis, the dog-headed god, who holds it up like that. And there's the feather of truth, and if the feather of truth weighs more than your heart, then you've had it. And if your heart weighs more than the feather of truth, you're kosher, you're okay, and you pass on to whatever it is. You know, 32 Dayville's endless variety of ice cream, or whatever heaven is. So, Thoth is the guy who, I don't forget, one of them weighs it and one of them judges anyway. I think Thoth is the judge.
I wouldn't want to be judged by him.
And Anubis is the god of the underworld.
Uh-huh.
So we use Thoth as a symbol, I suppose.
What kind of life you think you'd have to lead to have your heart not weigh as much as that feather?
Well, you'll find that out when you die.
Oh, that's the big joke.
Well, yeah, you find that out because you are probably the judge. I mean, a modern version of that would be watching yourself on video, assuming that your life, your conscious, you know the theory that your consciousness retains everything in it.
Right.
And that we don't forget anything at all, but we just keep remembering certain key
Plus
things.
collective things too? Do you think that?
No, you may have a collective. I don't think you're responsible for what goes into the collective unconscious.
Okay.
That's like a movie you didn't ask to rent being shown on your own screen.
Right.
Yeah, it simply would be your spool is unwound after you've died and shown to an audience of one, which is you. And you watch your life from the standpoint of the dead, with the knowledge of the dead and the requirements of the dead. Which isn't things like, so all the things like hunger and sex and all the impulses that were so important to you when you were alive are laughable to you as a kind of disembodied spirit.
Right.
So you have to judge yourself. I suspect that's what happens. I think you send yourself to hell. But you can do that in this life just as easily and cheaper.
Yeah. So, you're...
Just want to hop into it?
I'm hopping. Your tour this time is pretty bare bones. You're just with your guitar and not with the band, not with the road manager.
No,
Very
no road
simplistic.
manager. Yeah, it is very simple.
You know, your material on I just seems something that would be saved on like bedroom outtakes or not really conducive to a tour. Were you up against much trying to put this stuff on tour?
Oh, no.
Good.
The reason the songs on I haven't got any backing is because they hopefully are strong enough not to need any, and therefore I can also perform them without having to have bass and drums and harmonies with them.
Yeah, well, that's true, but you know, and a lot of people will listen to it and it will go straight to the heart or wherever it belongs, but unfortunately, I don't know if you've come across in this industry where for some reason that's not evident to everybody. They want to see the big packaging, they want it more beefed up.
Not in a small club. I mean, for some reason we're playing this club which actually holds 1,000 people, but most of the places, the clubs, the capacity is 250, you know, which is fine for a folk singer. I mean, you know, you take a folk, literally what used to be called a folk singer, somebody with an acoustic guitar.
Right.
In the 60s, that's what they were called, was a folk singer.
Right, and so there's venues for that.
If you don't play beat music, you must be playing, there's lots of places that play country venues. I mean, I agree with you in a big area, but this is only small, you know. Just for some reason they put us in a big place tonight.
Okay.
So it'll look 3/4 empty, too bad. And there's the World Series, so that should keep just about everybody away.
Go Reds.
Yeah.
Go Reds.
Sorry?
Are you pulling for anybody? Do you
No,
follow
I
it?
haven't got it. I don't have any interest in sport at all, neither here nor in Britain.
Yeah.
So I'm not very good at male bonding.
Big football fanatic.
I hate football. I hate games, I'm afraid. I'm a frump. That's why I became a rock musician, you know, because I had to prove my virility in some way. And I wasn't interested in team games or athletics or anything to boot, you know. I'm an incredible physical coward. I mean, knock a tennis ball my way and I duck behind the sofa. So I just register shock very fast.
Yeah.
So you know, my ego had to seek other paths, and so to make up for being this kind of a wimp, I had to become a whatever it is I've become.
Have you had any problems when you first took your stuff on stage? Did it get you?
Well, nobody's interested to start with. That's where you need the ego as a kind of rocket
keep you
booster
going,
to get it. If you weren't obnoxious and either so sure of yourself that it doesn't matter or so insecure that you have to really try like a rat gnawing through a dustbin, you wouldn't bother to get anywhere.
Yeah.
You know, but you've got to have this awful vision of yourself as somebody in some way. Too bad, you know, that's the application of the ego.
Do you do much drawing on the side? Because I've seen, you know, in your liner notes and stuff, you got some good,
I used
interesting
to.
drawings.
I drew a lot when I was younger. I used to
Yeah.
listen to music a lot, and I drew. No, I don't so much.
I like it. Some good stuff. Reminds me of something that my friend does. John's brother, Steve, would like Robyn's
John's
stuff.
brother Steve. Maybe John's brother Steve and I are both tapping from the same root, you know.
Yeah, it's
Very
the same type
probably.
of faces and stuff.
Is it?
Yeah.
Ah, well, yeah. It's either in our molecules or.
Gee, what else? Should I stick to the paper?
Like a fly.
I wanted to know.
What you got?
I just wanted to know, since you said you weren't, didn't like athletics, how did that go over in school when you were in school? What were you like in school?
You got beat
What
up.
was I like in school? Oh, it's an interesting point. I think it all fits in. You know, I wasn't at schools where athletics were the prime thing, but a kid has to assert itself in some way. I mean, either because of the. It's the same with adults, only it's more obvious in kids. You know, you've got the leaders of each clusters of things. You know, you have to have a place in there. So I tended to. I made people laugh. You know, that was how I got off the hook. Didn't
That's
matter if I
great.
was. Plus, I was always fairly tall, so I wasn't getting picked on physically. But I was a wimp. If somebody did pick on me, they could beat me up easily. So I tended to put people in a kind of ludicrous context where nobody would really want to have a go at me anyway, or couldn't. So I was manipulative, and like everyone else, I sought attention, and I did it through being funny. But I really wanted to be a folk singer.
Okay.
All the time I was drawing and making people laugh.
Like Bob Dylan really influenced you?
Yeah, Bob Dylan took over from my parents when I was 13. And I didn't
Yeah, that's usually how it works.
And I
with
became Mr. and Mrs. Zimmerman's little boy.
From Minnesota.
Say that again.
We didn't even have a bar mitzvah because we didn't have any, around here.
Apparently he had trouble having it. They had to get a special rabbi in wherever he grew up or something. A rabbi over the barber's shop where he'd go and have pre-coaching for the bar mitzvah. So like him having, I had coaching to be Bob Dylan, be a folk singer. So that's how I became what I am today. Folk singing, a lack of interest in sport.
Yeah, right. You wanted to get a little bit more emotion in the release of I heard that from some other interview that you had done.
Well, that's
a
what
lot
I
of your
like
stuff-
about music.
Yeah.
But I don't know whether there's an emotional language in songs, so that if you heard, which especially is happening with all this world beat stuff coming in, so if you heard an Arab singer or someone from Senegal or wherever they hang people for smoking pot, any of those places that the emotion would reach you. In other words, is there a global level of emotion that people automatically respond to, same as
Right.
dogs respond to ultrasonic
Frequencies,
frequencies? or is it actually regional, and that we in the West can only pick up on certain emotions musically because of our training? And also
I'd hope
words,
not,
you know.
yeah.
So I mean, it could be possible to. Could you produce an emotional music without any words? And is it what hits people is the tune? I've spent years writing songs, millions of songs. I've written, wow, 500-600 songs probably. But there's lots of effects I've never had on people, you know. I know I can maybe amuse people or frighten them or make them think, but I don't think I necessarily get to the heart.
Oh, you do?
And,
yeah.
well, maybe I get to the heart of certain people who understand, you know, people who've been to college. But I don't suppose I get to the heart of people who haven't.
Okay.
You know?
Yeah.
It's interesting. I mean, you know, it's a white, like REM, it's a white middle-class phenomenon. You know, would this make any sense to someone who wasn't from that environment?
I see. Okay.
And I think the ultimate challenge, he said, having talked almost non-stop for 5 minutes, it would be, as a songwriter, to see if you could produce stuff that just reduced these people that didn't speak your language and weren't the same race to tears, you know.
Right. Like a painting
Or
could
to laughter.
to illiterate people.
Well, that's the trouble, you see, people aren't even trained to like. You can't tell. Some people are going to respond to so-called art and other people aren't. And it's largely a question of whether you train them. Pop music is designed to get the maximum response with the minimum of input. Within 2 seconds, you're chewing away at the sugar and tapping your feet.
Yeah.
That's why I'm a folk singer, because we folk singers are more discriminating.
Because, you know, how often you've seen a performer and if you're really listening, you know what they're singing about, you know what they're trying to get across, and you'll have somebody in the front row, yeah, you know, you're listening?
There should be a couple of those tonight. Hopefully they'll be watching the game.
How do you handle that? Because my heart usually like falls out for the performer, you know, like, oh man, you know, is this gonna like send this performer home? And
I'd rather there was somebody dumb making comments than somebody smart. The worst thing is if you've got a smart heckler, someone who knows your weaknesses and points at you. You know, they could go, derivative, aren't you, Hitchcock? Not very good at sport. You know, or something. You know, they could find out whatever it was. You know, you don't male bond, do you?
We're gonna go out and tell the crowd we yell those things now.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
well, that's probably.
Yeah.
You
There are
lose
some songs that you know, like the Soft Boys and your material on Black Snake, Diamond Roll, and so I like that stuff. But somewhere or other, I've read that, or Groovy Decay and then Groovy Decoy, how there's some material that you wish didn't exist. Or
The recording of Groovy Decay was a drag, so we released the demos for it and called it Groovy Decoy because it was fractionally different. Also, one bunch of guys have the rights to Groovy Decay and a different bunch have the rights to Groovy Decoy, just to add to the confusion. Otherwise, I'm quite happy with all of it.
oh, good.
I don't sit around wishing I hadn't done it, and I still receive royalties from it all, so I'm extra pleased, you know.
Well, you what?
I wanted to know what do you think of pop music, the state of pop music today?
Oh, state of pop music today?
Yeah, like
Well,
the new
there's an
kids.
awful lot of it. I mean, people's reaction to the new kids now is much like it was to the Monkees 25 years ago.
I'm so glad
people-
you didn't say the Beatles.
Yes, me too.
The Monkees.
The great thing about the Beatles is that there was a time when the most popular group in the world was also the most talented, and I don't think that's true now.
Right.
But the Monkees, everybody loves them in retrospect. But who knows? Maybe the new kids will sort of suddenly mutate into their minds will suddenly sort of telescope, and they'll start writing their own material and picking up radio signals from Venus or whatever, you know, and they'll lead everyone into a new age. Maybe they won't.
And then do a reunion.
People have complained about pop music since it started.
Yeah, that's true.
But it's like anything else. Things are good in retrospect. So things like 1975, everyone will suddenly go, "Woo, Hotel California wasn't that good" or something. I mean, it was pretty boring at the time, but it sounds all right now. So I think pop music's just a way of measuring the time. So when everybody gets old, they're going to remember the tunes they had when they were young, and I don't think it matters really.
It seems nowadays more people can do it. They can buy their little machines and get on vinyl a lot easier. Just anybody can make a record, more or less. maybe that's good, but it's just flooded with a lot of generic stuff.
What do you mean by generic?
Like the hit making
No
machines.
personality, no spirits really coming out of it. Metal.
Well, but then to some people, metal's different. You know, they feel like by liking metal, it means that they're bad. in some
Yeah,
way.
sure. It's the fashion of the music.
And other people like thoughtful, wimpy stuff. You know, I think Suzanne Vega's the new Paul Simon. That's not a detrimental comment. I just realised that she has a similar feel to stuff he wrote ages. There's just so much. As you say, it's easy to put out a record now. There weren't so many independent labels 20, 25 years ago. But it's probably harder to actually get it heard.
Yeah.
Because the companies have worked out how to sell stuff. As George Michael said, there was an interview the other day, and he said something about, he said, I'm not a social phenomenon like the Beatles and the Stones. People like me and Madonna aren't that. We're marketing phenomenons. He said, just think what would have happened if the Beatles and the Stones had had the marketing forces behind them that we have now. I mean, I've always had this nightmare scenario where it's declared illegal not to have the new Michael Jackson album. And these people come into your house in the middle of the night. Okay, where is it? Where is it? Come on, you know. And, you know, someone's desperately trying to sing Thriller in the background. You know, we got it, don't we? We had that record out there. You know, Thriller. Put your teeth in, lady. You know, and they pull the closet out, you know. Huh, what's this? The Doors? Things like that. And I can just see that. That's marketing forces for you, but, you know, which Russia is now about to experience the joys of. Having had nothing but crackly state-released opera for the last 300 years, they'll have the market economy, and with that
And
will come MTV and, you know,
Big Macs.
and Big Macs and big hair and big garbage. You know, there's always going to be garbage, right? And there's always going to be good stuff. That's why I'm really hesitant to moralise and say, "Woe unto ye, children of now," you know. Because there probably is lots of good stuff around.
Well, compared with all the pop music and all the music that's going on today, it's popular and everything, do you think your music's like the underdog?
No, what I do is also see a lot of stuff comes up and down very fast. You ever heard of a group called Bros? In England, they were enormous, like 2 years ago, and now they're on the way out. They were everywhere. By the time they're 23, they'll probably be, you know, ex-millionaire, bankrupt junkies having to sell their stories every 15 months to the press and living in a garret. Yeah, you know, I mean, there's different ways of pitching a career. You can go up and down, or you can carry on. I mean, I've been doing this for 5, 10 years, 10 years, whatever, 5 years in America. Hopefully in another 5 years I'll still be around. You know, it's just a difference between having a career like, say, Van Morrison or Richard Thompson or somebody does. Do you want one?
What's that?
Do you want some chocolate?
Maybe later, not right now.
Oh, sure.
Thanks, though.
Anyone want a...
Cherry?
I can't say the brand name on television. Does anyone want a cherry?
Well, we're passing
I'll
out
have one.
some English tea
Thank
there
you
for you.
very much. How did you know I was English?
And we got you the
well, we didn't think
crowd
you're
hat
supposed
since you love fish so much.
Oh, thank you.
Isn't it
Oh,
charming?
yeah,
This
that's
is
really
America,
nice.
Place
I
of
know.
tackiness, where tackiness abounds, and
Oh, yeah.
cool.
I was wondering, do you plan to release anything like next year? Or, I mean, solo or with the Egyptians? Or what is your next?
I haven't really got one, actually.
No plans?
I haven't got any plans at all.
Just to eat those cherries.
Well, you know, that you can. The future is something that you live in, but it's never there. When you get there, it's always gone. It's like a butterfly that leads you over a cliff. You know? I'm still trying to learn to live in the present, and in the company of these villa cherries.
Villa cherries.
Well, how do you pronounce
The Soft Boys were the late 70s, right? And in America, I was pretty open to music in the late 70s, early 80s, but that didn't make it over here at all.
Well, it wasn't released over here.
Thank
None of the soft voice material was released.
Well,
in the
how
United
were
States.
you back in?
Not at all. It was disastrous.
Oh.
There was no interest whatsoever in the soft boys in
What do you
Britain.
think?
We
You had a small following, or are they villa?
I think so.
They're very villa.
No, nothing happened, but we came to New York once in 1980 with the Soft Boys, and then we gave up altogether about 6 months later. But I think a bunch of records were imported into America, and they just found their way around various underground networks. And I think one of the reasons people thought the Soft Boys were cool was because no one knew if they existed or not. And then that passed on down to me. So about 5 years later, I don't know what happened, but about 5 years later I put a record out and somebody rang up and said, would you like to play in the States? You're a cult figure. So I said, yeah. Is there any money in it? And they said a bit. So we came over here and we've been working here steadily ever since. Not in a big way, but I think entirely because people didn't know whether we were real. Now people know that I'm real and I play Cincinnati once every 11 months or whatever it is. And they know I'm going to be in San Francisco every 10 weeks. It's not such a buzz for them. I mean, I'm a taken for granted thing. And then move on to whatever else is hip or strange or whatever. But
Makes people look at you. It's been really strange. Do you get tired of that?
they did. But you know, you have to be, I mean, the alternative is to be looked at as really normal. Yeah, that English guy who's really normal, I don't know him. He's incredibly dull, yes, Robyn Hitchcock. My God, now there's a man who never puts a foot wrong, you know. And people would look at me like as if I was an accountant or an attorney, or, you know, I'd rather be a plumber. I mean, it's nice unblocking things, it's nice pulling things out. It's nice to get through something like this fish does. You know, to go in one side and out the other, and what this fish is doing is, well, it's going in and out of your brain. And that's, you know, that's basically what I want to do to people. Or what I do to people.
Does it ever get to you, though, I mean, like in a very freaky way, to think that, you know, some person in Omaha has a Robyn Hitchcock take? I mean, it's so intimate, you know, people listen to music in such intimate settings, you know, like if you're just in your car, you're in your own little world,
Yeah.
it's just you and Robyn, and you're just driving, and you don't even know this person. Does it ever kind of like blow your mind?
No, fortunately, but only because I don't think about it.
I'm sorry, I brought it up.
No, because I think there's a difference between thinking about something and being aware of it. You know, actually really feeling it and just saying, yeah, so someone's naked in a room with my record on or something. My God, you know, how embarrassing. Turn it off. I don't want my record to see you with your trousers off. So, but I mean, the other side is that there's also about 1 billion other recorded people, so-called recording artists people are intimate with. I think the biggest thing that strikes me is there's no right of reply. They can listen to my records, but I can't listen to them, and you can't have a dialogue with a record. But you can get an illusion from a record, which is quite comforting, that in some way that record is your friend, or the person on it is, or has experienced the same things as you. But the trouble is, if you go up and tell them that, the artist doesn't want to know. You know, it's no good me going up to Van Morrison and saying, God, I love Lyndon Arden stole the highlights, made me cry on a plane in Sweden, or something like that. Similarly, if someone comes up and says, boy, I love Often Dream of Trains, or something like that, I think, well, good. You know, but there's nothing you can do about it. You can't confuse the artist with the art. You can interview me, but you can't interview my records, and my records would be much more interesting to talk to than I am. They're like frozen children in a way that don't develop. But they have almost as much, in some cases, more care taken over them than kids do. But once they're out, pop, they're out. South side of where?
No, you're not.
Dayton.
I know, kind of like, you know, whenever I'm in
Dayton, Ohio.
Dayton, Ohio.
Home of Chrissy Hind.
Akron, actually.
Is she from Akron?
Akron, the rubber capital of Ohio.
They make licorice there.
Licorice? They have licorice. Hey!
It's like eating rubber.
So whenever you're ready, you can go ahead.
Oh!
For the iron pot?
Does anyone actually watch this?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
I do.
All right then, you're
My
okay.
parents went, so
What are your parents' names?
John and Leslie.
Okay.
Oh no, wait, that's another idea.
Yeah, that's Andy and Pat's Groovy Cosmic Love Hour.
So I wrote that down in case you.
Good evening, John and Leslie. You're watching the international rubber capital of Akron. That's right, Chrissy Hind is here with me in the studio tonight. Unfortunately, Chrissy couldn't be with me, but her head could be. Hey, gone, cats. Now, tell me, Mr. Pumpkin, how does it feel to have those thoughts? You haven't been having bad thoughts, have you? You haven't been thinking unclean thoughts? Because if you have, it's all on camera. Yes. Take that fish out of your brain for a start. What's this? Peanut caramel clusters, my favourite. And my pumpkin's been thinking of them. Bad pumpkin. Unclean thoughts. Clean for me, though. Hi, this is Robyn Hitchcock, and you're watching Andy and Pat's Groovy Cosmic Love Hour. This bears no relation to what's actually happening in the outside world.
That's great.
Is that all right?
Yeah.
Lovely.
Oh, could you do that again?
Wasn't enough emotion.
Yeah.
Yum, 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 yum.
Thanks
So now
much.
you guys will have to dismantle all this lot.
I'm gonna dismantle you here.
Oh, yeah.
There you
Hey,
go.
thanks.
Yeah, we appreciate it.
Who are Andy and Pat, by the way?
That's
I'm
Andy.
Andy. Pat's
They do a call-in show on Wednesday nights, a live call-in show on Access Cable TV.
Yeah.
And just conjure up any kind of topic and get irate callers and
Mystic Trip.
all kinds of callers.
It's a
And
large
Mystic
part of
Trip
it.
is, maybe we shouldn't even say
Mystic
this.
Trip.
Could we have permission to use Mystic Trip as an opening theme song?
Yeah, do.
Okay.
Because we've done it already.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm glad you said yes. Because if you just said no, we would have said, okay, well, we don't do that. We
Well,
don't use it.
we owe you $82.59.